Hello dear friends, welcome once again at Lit eCity YouTube channel, which is your one-stop destination for English literature for your preparation of exams like NTA NET, GATE and other exams, and especially these series is designed keeping in mind your requirement for JRF. All these videos, all these writers and these works have been picked up, have been selected, taking into account how many questions have been asked in previous years question papers from these writers. So our this series most important writers, we don't cover those writers which are generally you find in guidebooks and other things, but rather those writers which are generally ignored or taken less care of. I have tried to focus on them. So in our today's episode of important writers, we will take writers like Joyce Cary, a very important writer, James Bridie, then we have Wyndham Lewis, John Masefield and Rose Macaulay. We will talk about these writers, their brief biographical sketch and important works written by them. So we will start our discussion of the day with writer John Masefield, 1878 to 1961, a very important, not as popular after the advent of modernism as other, but in his time a very popular writer. A British poet, John Masefield is a British poet who became poet laureate in 1930 after death of Robert Bridge and is known for his poems which are based on his experience at sea. He has taken a long journey on a ship, and these experiences were influential in his works. Saltwater Ballads and a very popular poem Sea Fever and Cargoes. As a young man, he spent many years in America working in a carpet factory, and these experiences are described in his autobiography In the Mill. If we talk about his long narrative poems, which are very popular ones, The Everlasting Mercy, and this particular poem shocked at that time the orthodox mindset because people were not ready to accept such honest and brutal treatment of one's religious convictions. Then the main character of this poem, The Everlasting Mercy, is Soul Kane. He begins as a liar, a cheater kind of person and drunkard, and goes through a series of encounters with different people, and these encounters lead him to an overpowering love for nature and mankind. You can find similarities with the rhyme of ancient mariner. Yes, this poem is almost on the same line, the spiritual regeneration of a person who is basically by nature a fraud. Another very popular narrative work is Reynard the Fox, which we can say is written in Chaucerian tradition, just like a tale of Chaucer, and The Ghost Heath Run. It is the subtitle of the poem. It is about a very famous folk hero, Reynard, who is basically a trickster who dupes people on highway, and he leads the hunters to a merry dance, and finally they are basically about they are trying to catch him and then escapes in the end. The quality of the poem is basically typical Chaucerian fun, frolicness, and storytelling, which makes it one of the very popular poems of the 20th century. The next writer we are going to discuss is another very important writer. Let me tell you a very interesting thing about her. Rose Macaulay and Virginia Woolf, they both share the time frame in which they were writing and also a bitter rivalry between them. There are proofs that Virginia Woolf was quite irritated of this lady and even have called her names. Rose Macaulay, British author of novels and travel writing, whose writing career is none less than 50 years. So you can understand she was a prolific and important writer. Uh, if we talk about her literary career, she started her career as a social satirist with novels like Potterism, Dangerous Ages, Told by an Idiot, Off an Island, Crew Train, and Keeping Up Appearances. Looking at the titles, you can understand that all these works, they were basically satirical. They were basically pinpoint criticism of the society, especially the high society of the time. Very Her most popular work, it includes the Towers of Trebizond. It is her final novel, which was written quite later in her life, and it is generally regarded as her masterpiece. It is set in Turkey, so an exotic location. The novel has a group of travelers, companions. They are trying to find their way from Istanbul in Turkey to legendary Trebizond, and presents a comical sketch of the contemporary Anglican society, because this group include all sort of people, their religious ambiguities, dilemmas, all these things are tackled in rather a comical satirical spirit. Some religious elements in English literature, they were defeated with, this is very important, they were defeated. It is basically a study of the poet Robert Herrick, and these are her best works of literary criticism. Next writer, very important writer, one of the greatest influence on modernism is Wyndham Lewis, 1882 to 1957. He was not only a writer, but actually he was a famous painter who founded the Vorticist movement, which was basically very much in itself inspired from Cubist painting art and literature to the modern industrial process. This is his main contribution. He was not among those who were completely ignoring the modern technology, but rather he inculcated the values of modernism into his painting and also in his writing, showing that what the modern world, the industrial world, the material world will provide as a source of inspiration. Inspired by the Cubist style of painting, which was popularized by Pablo Picasso, Louis developed his own particular way of a unique style of painting. It included abstract geometric forms and also references to machine and urban architecture. This is what makes him different from other painters of that time. In 1914, Louis published the first of two numbers of Blast. This is his greatest contribution because this magazine, Review of the Great English Works, it is the complete title. Unfortunately, only two numbers were published of this Blast. It was a publication which attacked Victorian values, which invited radical modernist views, and which popularized the modernist technique and concepts of literature. His first-hand war experience, he fought from at the front, inspired him to write his first novel, Tar, another great work in 1915, which was actually published in 1918. The novel Tar is set in pre-war Paris. It was just at the twilight of war. Its principal characters are artistically inclined bourgeois, and the leading character, who is an English painter, Frederick Tar, is the actually mouthpiece of the author's view on art and sex. So it's basically a novel of conversation in which different set of characters, especially those that belong to the art class and art critics, Lewis has made fun of their empty and shallow talks. His other works of this particular period include The Lion and the Fox, very important reference. It is a study of Shakespeare and Macaulay, Time and Western Man. It is a cultural and philosophical discussion, and it includes critique of writers like James Joyce, Gertrude Stein, and Ezra Pound. Then we have The Apes of God, which is a biting satire on London's contemporary literary and artist scene. Once again, his favorite arena, a young simpleton, Dan Boleyn, encounters the rich literati, the literary class or the art class of art critics, which is directed by the infatuated 60-year-old albino Horace Zagreus. Jagdius manipulates, lampoons, scandalizes. Actually, we can say this Jagdius is somewhat designed on his on the author's life itself, and a large cast of characters based on various real life personages of the periods. The butt of satire, the most satire is against Sitwell's brothers and sister who were quite influential of the society. Other significant works of Lewis include an allegorical fantasy in form of the Human Age trilogy, which is composed of the Childermas, Monstre Guy, and the Malin Fiesta. Very important, not very popular, but actually they present his vision of the future. The fourth volume, which was titled The Trial of Man, it was unfinished at the time of his death. Then we have his two autobiographies written by him, Blasting and Bombardiering, which were based on his war experiences, Rude Assignment, a narrative of my career up to date. This is his second biography. Next writer we are going to discuss is James Bridie, 1888 to 1951. James Bridie is actually pseudonym of Osborne Henry Mawer, who was a Scottish playwright, gained popularity for his witty comedies, and also his contribution in the revival of the Scottish drama of 1930s. He was also a very successful physician, and he achieved his reputation. He was writing play quite right from his career, but he became famous with the publication of The Anatomist, which is a comedy on the grave robbers Burke and Hare. Then we have his contribution include he was founder of Citizen Theatre in Glasgow, instrumental in establishment of the Edinburgh Festival, and then he wrote plays on different themes. For example, plays on biblical themes, Tobias and the Angel, Jonah and the Whale, Susanna and the Elders, medical themes, A Sleeping Clergyman, portrait plays, Mr. Balfry, and experimental poetic plays like Daphne Lauriola and the Becky Charivari. The next writer, very important writer, is Joyce Cary, 1888 to 1957, an Anglo-Irish writer, novelist, whose novels were written in modern experimental style. His experiences as a colonial officer made him a critique of the practices of colonialism. Like George Orwell, he was also an administrative official, and from very close quarters he witnessed the cruel working of colonialism and become critic of it. In 1932, his first novel, Isa Saved, appeared, and it was once again a story of a girl trapped into this colonialism. It was followed by An American Visitor and The African Witch. All these novels are set in Nigeria and the places where he was posted as a administrator. His first international success was Mr. Johnson, which is a novel about the decline of British imperial power, British colonial power, and it was critically acclaimed for a very true representation of moral conflict faced by the central character, who is the title character, Mr. Johnson, who is an African, and the colonial officer who befriends him and later must stand revise his judgment for a murder which he commits. In his later novels, he changed the setting from Nigeria to English and Irish countryside. Charlie is My Darling is the story of London children's evacuation. Large number of children were evacuated during Second World War to the English countryside during the Blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg is German bombarding. And second novel is A House of Children set in Ireland. It is autobiographical because it talks about an Irish person's development as a writer. Then we have two trilogies by Cary. The first trilogy on art begins with first person narration of a woman, Sarah Monday, and the novel's name is Herself Surprised. It follows with two men in her life. One is the lawyer Tom Wilcher in To Be a Pilgrim, and the second one is the artist Gully Jimson in his most popular novel, The Horse's Mouth, which is his also most famous work. Then we have his second trilogy, which is consists of A Prisoner of Grace, written from vantage of a politician's wife, Nina Woodville. Second novel is Chester Nimmo, which is the politician himself in and Accept the Lord, and Jim Letter, the wife's second husband, who is Not Honor More. This is his second trilogy. So there are two trilogies by Joyce Cary. These were those five writers which we have covered in this particular session. I hope this information adds to your knowledge, which is relevant for the coming exam. Anytime you can ask for PDF of these videos, which I will provide you free of cost. Keep supporting, keep studying, and get your goals. Thank you, students.